Members can remind you that this meeting will be recorded and ask you to note that mobile phones should be switched off as they interfere with the recording. Tablet devices should be switched to mute. And I remind members to declare their interests as appropriate throughout the meeting. Can I declare the meeting open to the public? Agenda item 1, have we any apologies?
No.
No apologies. Agenda item 2, chairperson's business. Can I advise members that a copy of the Reservoirs Bill as amended has been tabled in advance of the further consideration stage of the Reservoirs Bill, which has been scheduled for next Tuesday. There is no formal role for the committee at further consideration stage, but members should be aware that Rivers Agency officials have offered to provide a briefing to the committee on any amendments that may come forward. That briefing would be on the afternoon of Monday the 8th of June. Do any members want to take up the offer of a briefing? What do members feel on that?
It's hard to know, isn't it?
Chairman, I suppose when we see if any amendments come in, then we can
decide and liaise with.
Yeah.
Is that okay? I think okay, members. If there are amendments come forward that we have concerns about, the clerk can arrange that meeting. Okay.
Yeah.
Agenda item 3, minutes of the meeting 26th and 28th of May 2015. Can I refer members to draft minutes of the meeting held on page 26 and 28, 2015, or at pages 7 to 15? Are members content that the draft minutes are accurate? Item 4, matters arising. Can I refer members to matters arising at pages 18 to 23? Are members content to action matters arising as suggested on the index sheet at page 17? Okay, members? Agenda item 5, an oral briefing from DARD 2014-15 performance targets, outturn report, provisional outturn savings delivery plans, update. June 2015 monitor round proposals and 2015-16 main estimates. And I refer members to the memo from the clerk at pages 26 to 32 and papers from the department at pages 33 to 139. There are a number of issues raised in the memo, so I suggest that if we do not get these all discussed today, we forward questions to the department for answer. Okay. And I welcome Graham Wilkinson, Colette McMaster, Pauline Rooney, Norman Fullerton and Roger Downey. Mr. Ray, welcome along, and we just asked you to one short, are we?
Yes, Chairman. What I was intending to do was to go through the business plan first.
First, okay.
And then Roger will join us and we'll go through the various financial reports.
That's 100%.
That's okay.
Okay.
So if I just then begin, Chair and members, with the Department's business plan outturn report for 14-15. Hopefully members will have had an opportunity to review the business plan report provided. It follows a similar format in previous years with an assessment of the various targets either achieved or not. No doubt members will want to explore the various targets in more detail. I've asked Pauline, Colette and Norman to come along to address the various questions that you might have. As you know, Pauline looks after the administration of the area-based scheme. Colette looks after the Rural Development Programme, amongst other things. And Norman is the senior sponsor for AFBI. While we attempt to answer any questions you might have, more than happy to come back to the members in writing as you suggested, Chair. There is quite a bit of detail in the report, and you'll be glad to know I don't intend to go through line by line, but it may be helpful to provide a brief summary by way of introduction. And perhaps if I could just begin with the programme for government commitments assigned to DARD. There are 4, and just to recap, that those are the eradication of brucellosis in cattle, the measure to tackle poverty and social and economic isolation, or TRIPSI, and the development of a strategic plan for the agri-food sector, which has now been taken forward through the Going for Growth Action Plan, and finally the advancement of the DARD headquarters to a rural area. Those are the 4 programme for government commitments. As you'll see in the highlight report on brucellosis, the position remains unchanged from the last time we presented to the committee. As confirmed then, the annual herd incidence reached 0 on the 20th of February 2013, with the last case confirmed in February 2012. We have also submitted an application to the EU for officially brucellosis-free status on the 5th of March. In relation to TRIPSY, Dard had a commitment to spend £5 million in 14-15, which brings the total expenditure on this programme up to £13 million. Indeed, it has been a successful programme, and maybe just to remind members of some of the outcomes that have been achieved through the £13 million. And those include 13,900 households visited under the Maximising Access in Rural Areas project, or MARA. 7,100 health checks in 344 locations, including 224 farmer marts. 78,000 contacts made under Connecting Elderly Rural Isolated project, and finally 575,000 passenger trips funded through Assisted Rural Travel Scheme. In relation to Going for Growth, departments including Dard continue to progress the various actions as agreed by the Executive. There are 118 actions, 42 of which fall to Dard. We have covered overall monitoring of the Executive Action Plan under Goal 1, Target 2. And whilst it's not practicable to include all of the various actions in the business plan, we've incorporated some of the key elements of those under Goal 1, Targets 5 and 7. On HQ relocation, we are making good progress, and work is progressing to relocate Fisheries Division to Downshire Civic Centre in Downpatrick later this month, Forest Service to Inishkeen House by September 2015. The Rivers Agency is due to relocate in June 2016 to Loughrea, whilst the remainder of the department's headquarters are due to relocate to Ballykelly, which is planned to have 400 workstations by the end of 2017 and a further 200 by 2020. In relation to the rest of the business plan targets, you'll see in our summary that 43 out of the 43 targets, 30 were classified as green or achieved, whilst 13 as red or not achieved. The position in relation to the 13 targets have been included in your packs, and hopefully you've had a chance to consider those. That concludes my introductory comments. My colleagues and I are more than happy to take any questions that you might have.
The business plan's on page 79 for those members maybe have difficulty finding that okay. Thank you for your presentation on the business plan. I take you to page 29 of the main estimates and the statement of comprehensive net expenditure. Your total net administration costs in 2013-14 was 54.2 million. 2014-15 it was 57.98 million, and in 2015-16 it is estimated to be 60.6 million. But your program costs are actually down. Why is administration going up, and what are the elements that make up administration costs?
Well, Chair, that was really on the financial presentation. If you want to leave that question to that, or do you wish me to deal with that?
Yeah, that's okay. Okay. Targets, goal targets 3 and 4 is about TB and the creation of a TB eradication strategy. Can you give me an update on when you expect the draft strategy to be available?
Certainly, Chairman. At this stage, as you're probably aware, the TB Strategic Partnership Group is having its various meetings and deliberations. The interim report is due, I think it's in June, we intend to have a final plan in September, towards the end of this year. So work is progressing on that. We're expecting to have an interim report in June, and then we'll pick stock once we receive that from the partnership group at that point in time.
Okay. Goal 5 targets 11 and 12 both deal with AFBI. Can you explain in further detail why these targets are in the red?
Certainly, if I maybe pass to Norman as the senior sponsor for AFBI, just to pick up on that.
Yeah, if you take target 11, the strategic plan for AFBI, this has involved, as you'd imagine, a very substantial volume of work over the past year, working with AFBI to develop a plan that will take the Institute out to 2020. As you are aware, the Institute faces significant challenges over the next number of years, not just in terms of the expected downturn in government funding through grant and aid, but also the effects of the loss of the substantial royalty income that the Institute receives. So it's important that we have a plan that will help the Institute through this challenging period ahead. We received iterations of the strategic paper in the early months of this year. We received a revised version right at the end of March. Actually last week we received what we hope is now a near final version of their strategic plan, which we now need to consider in detail. And the Minister will want to consider it very carefully before taking final decisions around that. So we didn't make the end of March deadline, but obviously this is an important piece of work for the Institute, and we need to get this right. In terms of the estate requirements, Target 12, substantial progress has been made around all of this. In terms of the facilities at Stony Road, the main building there requires significant investment at the end of its working life. The outline business case for that is now effectively complete. It has passed through our own internal scrutiny processes. However, we just want to, before submitting to DFP, we just want to make sure that it is properly aligned with the overall strategic direction of the Institute, to make sure that there is consistency there. The business case is looking at the headquarters facilities at Newforge, and the future of that are also now at a very advanced stage, and again very close to being signed off through our own internal scrutiny processes. But again, we want to make sure that they're properly aligned with the AFB strategy as well before submitting to DFP. So they're very well advanced. A lot of work has gone in to those documents, and we're also looking at a master plan as well around the farm buildings at Hillsborough, and that would be on a slightly longer time frame. But there, we just want to make sure that we align what we're doing there with what's happening on Caffrey. And if there's a possibility of sharing of facilities, that we do explore that in full to make sure that we maximise the return that we're getting from the overall Dart estate. So that's a piece of work that hopefully will be coming to a conclusion by the end of June, I would like to think.
Yes, thank you. Joe Byrne.
Thanks, Chairman. Yes, I welcome the presentation and welcome the fact that we're at a stage where we can get brucellosis-free status. I think that's to be welcomed. And also the subsidy, 13 million was spent last year. But in terms of the red, I suppose, Goal 1, Target 4, the Rural Development Programme. You talk here about EU approval to the programme is now expected to be June or July, or in the worst scenario, September 2015. Why is it so delayed? And am I right in saying that it'll be June before you can put in your final answer to the queries that came from Mr. Hogan?
Yep. Yes, I'll pick up on that one. Well, we had, yes, business target in last year's plan was to achieve that EU approval by the end of March. Couple of reasons why we have not been able to achieve it by that stage, and I'll explain where we are now then as well. So we had executive approval for the overall budget for the RDP agreed last June, towards the end of June, and following that then we finalised our programme for submission in mid-October, and we submitted that formally to the Commission on the 14th of October. So it went, some of the programmes had been submitted during the summer, ours went in mid-October. Then at that stage, what we were expecting, I suppose, was to have the Commission response on our programme within 3 months, which would have been by mid-January. That's the formal response. But the Commission as well were dealing with quite a lot of programmes coming in at that stage. and we didn't get our formal observation letter then until the 31st of March. So that's the reason we haven't achieved the approval by the 31st of March. That's the date by which we got the formal comments back from the Commission, and we're now in a process where we're negotiating in the Commission about those formal comments. We are working very closely with Commission officials on that. We've had a lot of contact with them, and we've had 8 video conferences to date and face-to-face meeting. So we're working very steadily through those comments. We're working towards having our final programme ready to resubmit this month, if we can achieve that. And on that time frame, then we're hoping to have Commission approval by the end of September, and that's the target that we've put in this year's business plan, September 2015. If we can get approval quicker than that, then that would be good. But that's certainly the target in the business plan for this year.
Well, in relation to the fact that it was 2014 June before there was agreement about the quantum of the package, that it's a co-funded package up to 623 million, are you saying it was the delay in getting to that point is the responsible reason for why we're so far behind?
No, I'm saying that there's a range of things that have happened since then, but that's sort of explaining where we are in terms of time frame. We're not actually very far behind at this stage, because there are, so far, out of 118 programmes that have gone to the Commission, 51 have been approved and 67 are still to be approved. So we're in that 67, so we're not at this stage very far behind.
Well, Chairman, maybe allied to that is Goal 4, Target 7, agree and publish in partnership with the industry a Phase 2 GHG action plan by the 31st of March 2015, subject to RDP approval. So I take it no progress there yet until the RDP is sorted out?
And this is one of our targets for our delivery side of the department. So yes, they're in a position where they are proceeding to develop the proposals for the schemes within the RDP, so that they can take that as far as practical before the approval is received. They're working very closely with policy colleagues on that, so they're aware of the negotiations we're having with the Commission. This then has a target in this year's business plan as well. And again, I think that target remains, it's 31st of March 2016. Yeah.
I'm concerned about the fact that the rural economy is going to suffer because of delays in agreeing the RDP. Certainly last Friday when we were in Cookstown at the launch of the TRIPSI report, a number of development groups and personnel raised concerns with me. Some of them are worried about being in a limbo position. We don't get the RDP monies sorted out, because once you agree the programme, it'll take more time then to get an implementation plan. When do you think will the implementation plan be agreed?
Are you thinking specifically of the local action groups work?
Yes.
Is that the sort of work you're thinking of? Well, I know that there's a lot of preparatory work underway, in advance of having the approval of the RDP, and that the proposed lags, they'll be working over the summer in drawing up the new rural development strategies for their areas. So, which will in themselves, they will outline what should be funded and why. So that work is underway, and there's not a delay in that as I see it. They're taking things along sort of in parallel with the work that we're doing ourselves, so that when the approval is in place from the Commission, and when we have the business case approval as well, that that the lags will be ready to launch their work as well. So I don't see that there's particular delay that we're seeing at this stage, because people are able to take that work as far as possible in terms of preparation.
Would the department intend sending out a comfort letter to those particular groups, sort of calming them down in case they have grave concerns?
Well, we're not, in terms of a letter of comfort, the groups themselves won't be formally put in place until the RDP approval is obtained. So the groups themselves are working in preparatory stage. I'm not sure if that's answering really what
And that's the
you're...
worry, that there's a limbo position. Some of them are very uncertain about if they have a future. They feel that if the RDP programme had been started, they would have been further ahead and knowing what the lie of the land is, so to speak. I think that's where there's some concern, given that there's been so much capacity built in the rural communities for rural development, that some of that resource could get lost.
I don't think we're anticipating there'll be a resource lost. I mean, the budget for the RDP will be over the whole period of the RDP, which is up to 2020. So we're not anticipating at this stage that there'll be budget lost as a result of starting. You know, I mean, we're not anticipating delay on approval if we're successful as in what we're working towards, which is achieving approval by September. We're not seeing that as a particular delay in the start of the programme.
Chairman, with your indulgence, can I just address another area? Goal 4, Target 7, agree and publish in partnership. Sorry, Goal 5, Target 9, reduce the days lost per member of staff through sickness to 7.5 days by March 2015. It says the most recent NISRA estimation report available indicates that the department will achieve 9.6 days lost per staff a year against the ministerial target of 7.5 days. What's wrong? Is the weather?
No, and this is one that we've talked about previously. It's very difficult for us to influence sick absence in the short term. But hopefully, Joe, you'll see from the various actions that we are taking that we're doing everything possible to try and address the level of sickness in the department. We're looking at some of the trends that we do have. A lot of it does relate to long-term sickness within the department and also around stress-related illnesses. We are doing everything that we can to try and address that, looking at interventions around health and well-being and allowing staff to attend various sessions with the Occupational Health Service within the NICS. It is difficult, and it is a target that we have. It's been read over the last at least 2 financial years, but to give you the reassurance that we are doing everything that we possibly can do to try and address it.
And lastly, Chairman, Goal 2, Target 4, publish a procurement strategy for the exploitation of one-farm development opportunities on the Forest Service estate by the 31st of March 2015. What's the hold-up there?
This is a very complex area, and certainly you'll know from the engagement that you have already had with the Forest Service and Kevin Hegarty in particular, who's taking this forward. We've been doing a lot of modelling, looking at the various sites that we have, identifying the opportunities. We have progressed well. I think over the certainly the last 6 months, things have progressed. We're at the stage now where we're developing our outline business case, and we expect that to go to DFP in the next month or so. So I think, to answer your question, Joe, it's one of complexity. It's a very difficult area. There are many issues in and around it, but we want to ensure that we spend the time now to make sure that we come up with the right solution for us. That all needs to be developed into a business case, and that needs to be submitted to DFP. So we are making good progress, and we'll hope to submit our outline business case to DFP, as I say, in the next month or so.
What would be the most major 2 or 3 difficulties?
Major 2 or 3 difficulties?
Take it just.
Well, I think one of the major difficulties is identifying the particular sites that we want to develop and making sure that we're getting the best return. Also, on trying to understand what is the best model for government. Do we want to actually develop the wind farms ourselves? Do we want to have a joint venture, or do we actually just want to lease that out to the private sector to develop. So those are the sorts of issues that we are currently considering within the department. What is the right way, best way to take it forward for Forest Service?
Well, then it appears as if there's not much thinking yet has been done on the policy side. It seems to be rather hazy.
On the policy side?
Well, in relation to whether it's going to be done by a private sector or it's going to be done in-house, the locations.
Yes.
Does the grid exist to facilitate it?
Sorry, does
the electricity grid exist to facilitate?
Well, that's another key consideration for us. As you know, the connection from the east-west connection, there are issues with that as well. So that is part of the considerations that we are currently looking into.
Chairman, thanks.
Okay. Ian, you done something else?
I have an hour we want just to you got there before me, but the one I was going to ask you about, on that business plan that you're proposing to put forward, is there a community benefit built into that?
Yes, certainly the Minister has been very clear about the social benefits of the wind farm development, and that's, again, was another one of the issues that we're currently exploring, is how best to do the community benefits, how best do you deliver it, particularly whenever we're in the public sector. It's quite a unique set of circumstances. The private sector have their own way of doing it, but how do we ensure that that's best delivered through the various models? And that'll be different depending on what I've just outlined to Joe, whether it's the private sector delivering it, whether it's joint venture, or whether it's we're doing it ourselves. Will vary the various community benefits that we're currently looking at, but to give you the assurance that we are looking at as part of the proposal.
Thanks very much, sir.
Yeah. Declan, Michael Eyre.
Thank you, Chair. Just to sort of follow on from what George spoke a minute ago on Target 4, whenever we met the Commissioner here on the 27th of March, he indicated that there would be a possibility of the Commission issuing a letter of comfort that would enable the Department to open some of the programmes ahead of sign-off. Has there been any progress made with that?
The letter of comfort was something specific that the Commission were issuing at a period, and that was before they had new legislation put in place. Part of they were waiting to put a new multi-financial framework regulation in place, and during the period while that was not yet in place, they agreed to issue letters of comfort to those whose programmes were ready to be ratified, if you like, whenever that came into place. Because that is now in place, they are back to the normal process, which is that they are working through the formal adoption process for programmes that are still being considered. So at the stage where that's what we're working towards with the Commission, and we're hoping to resubmit our programme, as I said earlier, this month, if at all possible, and then to achieve the Commission approval for that by September or earlier, if that's possible.
So really that window has elapsed, is that right?
That was a particular arrangement that the Commission had agreed to before they had put that new piece of legislation in place at Commission level. Yes, and the Commissioner mentioned that at the time. But that is something that they have now. There's no need for it from their point of view any further, and so that we're following the normal adoption process.
Do you see then, and related to the rural development programme as well, I'm aware that the rural network contract that RDC held at last time, and I know that the great work they did in terms of the lags and getting all that going. What is the update? Where's all that? Where's the rural network contract at the present time?
Okay. Update where we are on that currently. Yeah, we're contract. There was a contract in place under the last programme. As you know, we're currently reviewing that. And as part of that, we're taking account of any lessons learned from the last programme and what the requirements are for the new programme. So it's work that's underway currently. We're required by the Commission rules to have a network in place 12 months after the programme is approved. So there is still, from the point of view of the Commission requirement, we're still well within that period. The programme, as we're hoping, will be approved this year by September. So we're currently work underway, looking at what the best way is to put that network in place for the next programme. There's, it'll depend on the option that we go forward with, but the process may be subject to public procurement. So that's where things are currently. There's work underway on that.
Because obviously, I know that I'm very aware of certainly the lag formation process has happened over the months that happened. I'm aware of the valuable role that was played in terms of doing that. And just sort of related to this, we got some correspondence here today from the Rural Community Development Support Services. Now, their funding has run out on the 31st of March, and their letter indicated that they have been promised on 3 occasions by DART officials that they would get a 12-month extension. And obviously they're facing a lot of pressure. Many of them are running under resources, their resources which are starting to run out. They're putting staff on notice. And obviously they're doing good work, not just what they do, but also in terms of rolling out the microgrant scheme. So what's the update in terms of this contract for the Rural Development and Community Support Services? Thanks.
That's something that I can't actually give you information on today. It's not my direct area, but it's something certainly we could.
But certainly, I'm aware of that particular issue, and it is something that I'm working directly with the Rural Development Division within the department on that particular issue. It's something that we're aware of, and it needs to be resolved.
Well, presumably you have
We've seen it. We've got a similar response.
They're under pressure, and
Yep.
valuable work at very grassroots level as well. I'm sure the committee will agree with that.
Yep.
So a bit of focus on this. Right, cheers. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Just on that, you do say you're working on that, but working on it, getting it resolved is a different thing. Are you near to getting that resolved? What we are told is that they are in good faith delivering. They're continuing to deliver for you, and they haven't got any funding from April. So,
yeah, I just got sight of the letter yesterday, so it's something that we're aware of, and clearly we need to have it resolved quickly.
okay, that's
So,
okay.
3 occasions, this is so it's important to focus on that now, because
Okay.
going by the tone of the letter, they're under pressure.
Yeah, that's right. I've got one here too. Okay. All running
I
well.
think, Chairman, that's the issue that I raised. There's a concern about the capacity that's been built up, and some of these organisations are going to be putting into what I call the limbo position. The uncertainty is causing great frustration.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Oliver, yeah.
Okay, I have one question here came out of the meeting in Cookstown as well. It's about rural white paper, rural stiffening and all that. All of those are touched on, and there's reference made to Offa's carrying out research. However, apparently this has been delayed due to resource implications. And if actually do research timescales, if Offa aren't able to timely carry out research, can consideration be given to appointing an alternative organisation? This is research.
Yeah, I mean, I've actually been in discussion with Offa yesterday, in fact, around some of the research that we'd like to commission this year, and their capacity to do that. So that's under active discussion at the minute, and hopefully we'll be able to make progress over the next few weeks to get the research commissioned around the rural proofing.
That'll be all done this next few weeks.
I would hope so, yes, to have that resolved, yes.
And the other question is, you see the programme not getting started maybe till September, October, November, whenever. Some of the lags in that there, and some of the grips starting to put people on protective. What happens there? Is there any way those people can be kept without having to lay them off? That's one of the big problems. I know what we're doing our best to get that, if the plans approved, and get them back and get it started. I suppose it goes back to what Declan was talking about, the level of comfort. Even at that would keep the staff on.
Yeah, I'm not sure if anybody actually, the detail on the lags. It's not, but what we certainly in terms of the working towards, we know we're working as closely as we can with the Commission to get that approval. And we're working on the business case that's needed as well, so that we can start to open programs as soon as we've got those approvals. I know that there is work ongoing in terms of doing a lot of preparation work with the grips to become the new lags. So there's a lot of work underway. I think maybe your question is about the existing lags, is it? Again, it's maybe something I need to just take some further advice on and provide some further information and update on that.
Okay, that's fine, thank you. Chair.
Okay. It has been mentioned in relation to the rural development programme and the, as yet we haven't got approval from Europe. I'm aware that after an approval from Europe, then it has to get the DFP business case approval. Have you any idea how long it'll take to get that? How long normal? What's the normal time frame for that?
Well, there's work underway, and there's a lot of work happening in department in parallel to working on the draft programme with the Commission. So there's work underway on a range of business cases that will really cover the main parts of the programme. There's a programme of work underway on the proposed farm business improvement scheme, and that one is in itself is a package of schemes within the RDP as we've outlined previously to you. So for that one, the business case involves a strategic outline case, and we're going to carry out 4 outline business cases below that strategic outline case. We've already got approval for the strategic outline case, and work's underway on the 4 outline business cases. Where we are in terms of the farm business improvement scheme is that we're hoping in the early stages to be able to launch that scheme with the resource, the advice, the training type measures. So that would be in the first instance. So in terms of business cases, that's where we're working, particularly on the business cases related to those measures that involve the training and advice and guidance for farmers. And we're working towards having those approvals in place as soon as possible. There is some funding in the 15-16 budget to be used towards resource-based measures, so we're hoping to get that approval as early as we can, so that we can launch and use some of that funding that is there. There's a leader business case that's underway as well, and work's underway by officials to try and have that in place so that we have approval from DFP as around the time of having the Commission approval. I mean, that's really what the aim is. And there's other work underway on agri-environment business cases. So quite a programme of work underway.
I understand that, but it looks like on the farm business improvement scheme, it's some time away yet before it'll be open for applications. Like it'll be, looks very much like it'll be into next year. Is that right?
Well, as I say, we do have money. There's money in the budget this year, 15-16. So
would help farmers with business plans and things like that, isn't that?
yeah. So we'd hope to be in a position. That's where we'd like to be, and we're still working towards that.
I think that's the important part, Chair, is making sure that farmers are making decisions based on sound business plans. I mean, there's no point investing in large capital projects if it's not going to make a return at the end of
I
it.
understand with the returns that farmers are receiving at the minute, it's not easy. Business plans, it won't be so easy worked out. No, I can assure you that. I mean, the currency situation is a big problem. Oliver wants
Just a
something?
very quick one, Chair. You see the rural programme when it starts, the councils haven't done their community plans yet. Can the councils come back in midstream with something in their community plan that would, for example, maybe have something changed? Is that possible? Or the way you started, the way you're finishing?
Yeah, I think the community plans will be subject to review, and so they can be updated. So so I think that will certainly be possible. Certainly what the LAG's role will be to draw up local development strategies that will have to be coherent with the community plan.
But some of the councils haven't even gone through the community plans yet, and if the lags are up and running, I'm only saying, for example, before the end of the year. Well, if they're up and running before the community plans are actually done, and then the councils could be coming back to the lags with something different, say something in village renewal or something like that there, is there scope to move some of the rules of the whole funding to suit any particular community plan?
I think certainly the work that's underway, as I understand that's underway out there, is that the councils are engaged in this whole process, you know, and certainly with the DART officials who are working on this, and the local development strategies which will be needed and possibly will be there before, as you say, before the wider community plan is there. They'll form part of that community plan, but those are being drawn up in as well in discussion with councils. Councils are aware that that's what this element of the community plan will be, that it will be as part of for delivery under the RDP. So that's those sort of structures are being discussed, and there's a lot of engagement on. So the strategies are being drafted in liaison with the new councils. They'll closely follow the direction of the council community plan, but if they're there first, again, the council community plan will take account of those, and I think there'll be opportunity for review.
There'll be opportunities for review within the programme.
Yeah.
Good. That's good. Thank you.
Joe, what's in again? Okay.
Yeah, Chairman, thanks. When the Commissioner was here, he very much highlighted the possibility of using European Investment Bank monies to fund farm business development loan schemes. And there's one has been announced in the Republic about 3 months ago, where about 500 million euros is available for this EU-backed or the EIB-backed farm development loan scheme. Is DART doing anything about bringing in a similar scheme, and how far along the way are we?
Certainly on the yes, the Commissioner did talk about the new instrument, the new financial instrument that the Commission had launched in March this year, and what he had encouraged was that Member States consider the potential use for such an instrument in their rural development programmes. That particular instrument will be linked to rural development programmes and would become part of your programme. So what the Commission, what he was encouraging us to do and others was that to allow for the potential use of such an instrument in the future if we were to come back to modify our programme in the future. It's something that we are currently seeking to gain more understanding of and gather more information about, so that we can assess whether that would be a useful thing to do for our programme. But certainly at this stage, there's an opportunity for us to I suppose, make provision within our programme that's already been submitted and that we're about to resubmit, to make provision for use of such a loan instrument at some point in the future.
I'm very aware of the virtues of it and the pros that he was pronouncing on it. I'm a wee bit concerned that we seem to be hesitant yet in putting on a formal application and co-tying it into the RDP programme that could be finalised, because it's RDP type monies that can be used, if you like, as collateral. And I think this is where there is an opportunity, but there would need to be some urgency created to make a formal application and finalise and agree at such a loan scheme.
Yeah, I don't think there's an urgent. I mean, there isn't a cut-off time for doing this, or there isn't an urgency. This is quite new, and this financial instrument, I think there was use under the last programme. A number of member states did use a financial instrument. There weren't too many of them, and but there were some did it. We're aware of all the lessons learned that come out of that, and so we're taking account of those as well. It's quite new. It's something that the Commission are developing in partnership with the EIB. There's a conference taking place later this month in Dublin on it, which is really the first of a series of conferences that the Commission are going to be holding around the EU on this. So it's an opportunity to learn further about it, to see what's involved in it. We have the opportunity as well to make provision within a programme for its use at some point in the future. So something we're very aware of, something that we're very interested in gathering information about, and we'll make that assessment. Because it's new, I don't think it's not that it's too late to do anything, and but it's something we need to make sure we understand the pros and cons of doing it before we commit to that. As you say, it uses money that's from within our RDP, and it would require us guaranteeing monies from within our RDP budget. So it is, you know, there's sort of, we have to be careful about what we're doing before we make those decisions, and we're at this stage aiming to gather all the information that we need to help us make a good decision on that.
I agree we need to be careful, but we don't want to be so careful that we don't go for it. Thanks, Chairman.
Okay. Declan again.
Just want to come back very briefly in a comment. This is the first time I've seen this letter myself when we came in here today, and I just noted the date of the 29th of May, and the RCDSS are saying that if there's any further delay beyond the end of May, that this could result in networks becoming insolvent or staff or something. So I just want to flag up that urgency that they've expressed here in terms of trying to move that on.
No, I'm aware of that, Declan, and you know, I've seen the letter as well, so it is something that is urgent and needs to be dealt with.
Thanks.
Okay. You have a further presentation then for us this day too?
Yes, I have the finance presentation
okay.
for you. I'll let the guys go.
Yeah, that's okay. Thank you very much. Okay.
Okay, thanks, Chair. We've a number of items today to talk about the Department's finances. Whilst the focus of my presentation is around June monitoring, I did think it was an opportune time to bring the committee up to date with the 14-15 financial performance. I've just started with the provisional outturn for 14-15. I can report to the committee that we did achieve our business plan target, which was 98.5 and 100%, and that was achieved both on resource and capital. The actual outturn for both was 99.9%. In monetary terms, that equates to a resource underspend of £245,000 against a budget of £207.5 million, and a capital underspend of £63,000 against an overall capital budget of £49.1 million. I've also included in your packs an update on the Budget 2010 savings delivery plans. Again, I don't intend to go through all of the various measures. However, I do wish to confirm that the Department did achieve its target of £40.2 million over that budget period. If we just turn to the 15-16 financial year, there are currently two exercises that are ongoing with DFP. The first is the main estimates exercise, which I've included in your briefing pack for information. The second and more substantive is in relation to June monitoring. This was commissioned by DFP back on the 21st of April and requires us to provide details of reduced requirements, bids and technical issues. As you might expect, we don't have any reduced requirements. We do, however, have a number of bids, technical adjustments to submit, and we'd be grateful for the committee's support. Starting with bids, you'll be aware from the information you received that we propose to submit 3 substantive bids. One resource bid for TB compensation and 2 capital bids, one for CAPREFORM ICT and the other one is for CAF-free building improvements. If you just start with resource, we are submitting a £4.5 million bid for TB compensation. Members will no doubt be aware of the importance of TB compensation scheme, both in terms of securing valuable export and livestock products, but also the Department's statutory requirement to adhere to the tuberculosis control order. And veterinary service projections identify a pressure, as I say, of £4.5 million. As members will be aware, we did allocate £7.3 million to TB compensation as part of the budget process, which brought the total funding up to £12.5 million, which is broadly equivalent to expenditure in previous financial years. However, we have experienced a spike in the incidence of the disease, with 476 more reactors this year from 1st of February to 31st of May when compared to last year. So broadly an increase of 16%. So that's the only resource bid that we have. Turning to capital, as I say, we have two. One for Cap Reform ICT development, which is supporting developments for some of our new schemes in the Rural Development Programme, such as the Environmental Farming Scheme, ANS and ANC, and this is the Department's top capital bid. CAFRE have also identified a range of capital projects which will help improve the delivery of its education and training programmes. The largest projects will improve energy efficiency, as well as a new sheep house at the Glenwary Hill Farm. You'll also see in a paper reference to the voluntary exit scheme. Funding for this scheme is being administered centrally by DFP, and this will include the monies required to administer the scheme in the core department as well as AFBI. In addition, the department's also had to bid for £3.1 million for the increase in employer pension contributions, which has increased from 19.5% to 22.3%. The executive had retained £122 million at budget 15-16 to fund this. On technical issues, we have a number of transfers, 0.9 million resource and 1.4 million that goes to other departments. £500,000 to DHS SPS and also for the TRIPSI programme. The capital transfer is for DFP for our HQ relocation programme. In terms of the overall process, returns are due back with DFP on Thursday, they'll consolidate that information from other departments and then submit that to the Executive for their consideration. Sure, that concludes my introductory comments. I'm more than happy to take any questions that the committee might have.
Thank you very much for your presentation. In relation to the 4.5 million for TB compensation, that is on top, I assume it's on top of, it is on top of what you've already bid for. But I think the bids were lower this year, am I right in saying that? Original bids, normally?
Normally, Chair, previously we didn't have enough money for TB, so it historically was very low. It was in around £5 million, and we had a top up every year through the various monitoring rounds. But during the budget process, we recognised that there was a structural deficit within our budget, and we needed to address that. So we put an additional £7.3 million into our baseline for TB. That brings it up to around £12.5 million. But because we've had this spike in TB, we now require a further top up to the cost for TB compensation.
Over 12.5 million?
Yes.
And what's extra?
It's 4.5 million.
So
we're looking at an overall 17 million.
17 million? Is that the highest for some time?
It is. It is it's much higher than it has been over the last number of years.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Yep.
That'll be concerning. Certainly means we're not getting on top of that one. 2 million for IT. That is for new IT, is that? Or is
it is. It's for the development work that the IT guys need to do to introduce the various new schemes that will come in through the RDP. As I mentioned in my introductory comments, you have the environmental farming scheme, you have ANC. There's a range of schemes that need to be implemented, and the IT work needs to be done to make sure that they're ready for application.
Capital building improvements, 1.9 million.
Yes, as I said, there's a range of schemes that CAFRE want to do. The Hill Farm in Glenwary, they want to put in a new sheep house, and the investment this year in that is around £350,000. There are also a range of other energy efficient things like PV panels that they want to introduce, putting in new windows into the various campuses that improves energy efficiency and ultimately reduces running costs. The focus for us is on resource. That's where the pressure is for us. And anything that we can do by investing in capital to help reduce that will only be a benefit, not just in the short term, but in the longer term. So things that we want to try and implement.
Okay. Joe, your turn.
Well, Chairman, just to follow on your own questions. This TB compensation scheme, obviously, you had budgeted for 12.5 roughly, and now you're looking for another 4.5, and we're only part through the year. I'm worried that this TV competition scheme is almost making a demand on a slush fund in terms of monitoring rounds. Is there any projections being done? What's the total quantum likely for the year, or will you be coming back in further rounds seeking more?
No, Joe, I mean, at this stage, that is our projections. At the minute, our veterinary service have done their own projections. That's based on the total cost. Our total projections are around 17 million, as I say. It is, as you know...
Is that because there's a 60% increase in the number of reactors?
Yes.
And that's 16% of an increase in the reactors so far this year?
Yes, and that they've factored that into their projections. So they do projections, and they have various ranges, so they have a high, a medium, and a low. At this stage, that projection is based on the median as to what they believe the
And is there any
cost is
analysis
likely to
being
be.
done on the increase of 16% in the number of reactors and why it's such?
Yeah, well, I think the most one of the elements is that the veterinary service are taking what I understand is a severe interpretation of the various results, looking at how they interpret the reactors, and that is giving rise to an increase in the number of reactors that are coming through. Is part of the reason why. But as you know from your own research, from the committee's research, it is an incredibly difficult disease to try and assess and to forecast into the future. But that is based on the information that veterinary service have produced to date.
Okay, John, thanks.
Okay, Tom Elliott.
Sure, thank you. Again, it's a follow-up to the same 3 points. You're probably the wrong people to ask, but is there any indication why there is such a spike in the TV reactors at the moment?
It would be speculative, but I mean that would be one of the key points that I've just mentioned. It's a severe interpretation of the results on the animals. You're probably right. I'm not the best person to ask about how the veterinary service interpret the results, but veterinary service believe that by taking that severe interpretation in the longer term, that will reduce costs. For they're taking more reactors out at this stage. It will cost more, but ultimately it will save in the longer term. That's one of the key elements that's giving rise to the increase in TB compensation.
Okay. Chair, on the capital spend of the ICT in relation to CAP reform, 2 million sounds quite a lot over and above what should have been budgeted for in the budget. Did you not see that there was going to be additional requirements for CAP reform?
Certainly we have invested in CAP reform as part of the budget process. I think one of the key issues for us has been understanding what the requirements would be, particularly for the new RDP schemes. The basic payment scheme and the green scheme was further advanced whenever we were developing the budget, but we hadn't factored in, as you quite rightly say, these other elements like ANC and like the environmental farming scheme. In terms of £2 million on ICT, doesn't buy a huge amount in terms of the investment. So perhaps we could have done more work as part of the budget process, and we may have been able to foresee it, but because we didn't have the detail at that point in time, we are where we are. And that's.
How is that ICT work tendered for?
There's a mixture.
And would you have many interested in it as well?
There's a mixture in terms of the approach. Some of the work we do in-house, and some of the work we actually have a strategic partnership with a company. It's like a call-off contract that we use. So it wouldn't be something that we would have to go out for the procurement exercise. At this stage, we already have a contractor in place. So that's how we deliver it. So it's a mixture of both in-house and contractor delivering the ICT requirements.
Okay. And are you satisfied with the service you're getting, both in-house and especially with the contractor that you have on tap or however?
Yeah, I mean, I think the process that we have works well. And certainly the initial feedback from farmers for the basic payment scheme has been positive in the system that we have developed. Certainly, if you compare what we have to other jurisdictions, it has worked well and it has been positive feedback. So we've no complaints in terms of the way it works and the service that we receive, and the ICT that we have is certainly well received by the agriculture and farming communities.
Do you actually find, since the additional IT systems went in some years ago, and obviously it's been improved and increased upon, that it actually increases or decreases the amount of labour workforce you need?
I suppose we're in a bit of a limbo stage of this process. If you look at the uptake that we have over 50% uptake for a single farm payment or basic payment scheme. So we still have to maintain a paper-based system. So you don't really see the benefit of that until you're more closer to 100%, where you can actually stop doing the paper-based. But at the minute we have both. So we have an IT system and we have a paper-based system. And whenever you have both in it, you don't really see the savings coming through until you have a higher uptake of the
Yeah, but in areas like single farm payment, all of the letters, all of the measures are generated electronically, apart from the inspections, which obviously I suppose some of them are handwritten and then have to be transferred onto electronic, but the CAP payment system and all is all electronic, is it not?
There is still quite a bit of paper-based to the systems, because whenever the application form goes out, everybody gets a paper-based form. So whenever that comes back in again, and back in the paper-based form, that all has to be manually input.
But that's only around your IX.
Yes.
Once it comes to the payment system, all of that's electronically generated.
Yes. But that would have been the case historically. Payments have always been done in the main electronically.
Yeah.
The labour bit is it really is in the processing bit is on the the form piece of the process.
So the payment system, because obviously there were payments of a different type before that, you'd farm capital grant scheme and all that. So would the number of staff have reduced significantly from it went all IT processed for payments?
I certainly wasn't in the department whenever it cut across from just purely manual to IT, so I wouldn't have that sort of information.
Yeah, but there are a number of aspects that are in transition and have been in transition for some years that have finally got to. I think you're just being a wee bit evasive, Graham, about the issue of are there more staff in the department now than there was 15 years ago when there was very little?
No, well, there's definitely not more staff in the department. We have seen a trend downwards. The number of staff have been reducing. And certainly we've seen the complexity of the various EU rules, and where we've had to put more staff onto particular areas. Certainly the experience around cap disallowance has required us to put more staff into particular areas because of the EU requirements, and that has been very labour intensive. So I'm sure we're definitely doing different things than we would have been doing 15 years ago. So where 15 years ago it was very labour intensive, payment processing. We're doing different things now, particularly around compliance with rules and regulations. Has required us to invest in our staffing in those particular areas. There's no doubt about that.
Okay, thanks, Chair. Thank you.
So I don't mean to be elusive.
No, appreciate that.
Ian Milne.
Thank you, Chair. Just on the voluntary redundancy scheme, have you any firmed up figures as to how many will be in this department or what?
No, I don't, Ian, but I do know that letters did issue this morning to staff. So of the staff that had applied, they've got a letter saying whether or not they have been successful this time. So those staff will obviously have to make their decision. I think we've got 10 working days to decide whether they want to take up that offer. So we're still very much in an iterative process, and we won't know for sure until the 10 days have elapsed and staff have made their decisions whether they intend.
Okay. And just on the TV issue again, it seems every time we get a presentation there that we're in a no winner here. that, you know, there's so much money put into the research. I think there's maybe something up to 7 million, has there been, over the next 5 years?
Yes, certainly we are. The TVR programme is around £1.5 million a year, so you're right, we are putting a significant investment into the research programme. Fortunately, any research in TB takes, you know, quite a significant period of time, and that's a five-year programme. And you're right, I mean, in terms of the TB compensation, I seem to be coming to this committee at every monitoring round with bids. I hadn't foreseen coming to this monitoring round with a bid. I mean, I certainly was surprised by the spike in the costs, because as part of the budget process we recognised that there was a structural deficit in the budget, and we sought to secure 7.3 million. We put that money into TB compensation, but we have seen an increase in the disease. We're statutorily compelled to pay it, and it's therefore a liability for the department.
Well, just, you know, when you think of it there, you're talking in the region of 25 million, aren't we? Like, you know, talking about TB, be it for compensation or be it for research.
Well, at 17, we're talking about 17 million TB compensation for this financial year. The 7.5 is over a 5-year period. So.
Yeah, I understand, right?
Yeah.
But it says to me there, you know, that, you know, we're not getting on top of it, and maybe we need to look outside the box, or the toolkit that someone come in here one time and told us that there was a toolkit. You know,
right.
That, there may be some kind of a spanner that they're missing from the toolkit, you know. But I think there, you know, we can sit here and come back year after year and listen to the same, you know, story about the research and about we're trying to get on top of it. But 25 million is a big amount of money there to be taken out of anybody's budget, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
17.5, whatever.
Yeah,
we
right. Yeah.
Is there a concentration still in what areas that we're finding was coming up with the bigger figures, the spike? With the spike?
I think there's no particular areas that are concentrated right across. Again, just going back to my earlier point around this severe interpretation that veterinary service are taking on the results from the tests is the only thing that I can see from what we're doing differently that would, you know, give rise to an increase in the number of reactors. But I mean, the whole debate around TB and what works. You know, there's a huge amount of debate on that, and I don't think anybody has the silver bullet, to be honest.
Okay, thanks, Chair.
Okay, Edwin Poots.
Thank you. What happens when you don't get the money?
Sorry, Evan?
What happens when you don't get the money?
Yeah, it's certainly a very difficult financial picture that we're looking into, and that's a very real prospect. We have been doing some initial contingency planning, looking at options that we might have within the department to address the shortfall. None of them are particularly palatable, and will require some difficult decisions to be made. So we're doing some contingency planning. We need to obviously have a discussion following the June monitoring round. Should we not get the money?
Yeah.
I'll make decisions at that point in time.
You have a legal obligation on TB payments,
That's right. Yeah.
so it's unavoidable.
It's unavoidable. Yeah.
Yeah. I just take you from the surreal world that you have been in for the best part of this meeting and back to the real world. The budget was predicated on the Stormont House Agreement. The Stormont House Agreement was built upon by Sinn Féin, and the consequence of that is that by the end of the June monitoring round, close to £30 million that would have been available to all of the departments will have been spent in welfare, and that will have to be reserved for the welfare fine that is associated with that. So the consequence of it is that there is little likelihood of there being any additional money, and the more significant consequence of it is that we could be in a situation by July that the Permanent Secretary is told to make do with 95% of the funding. What are the consequences in that scenario? How will that play out? How will it affect the Department of Agriculture in terms of jobs, in terms of equipment that you'll be expected to honour and so forth? If you have to operate on 95% of the budget that you started the year with, and you're told that in July sometime, what happens at that point?
Well, that's certainly. I mean, as you would expect, we've been looking at,
Yes.
what it means. It's 95, my understanding is 95% of the previous year's
Yes.
budget, which would equate to a 5% cut, which is, in net terms, that's where we are today on the 15-16. It will require us to look at the various elements of our budget, looking at all of the areas of discretionary expenditure, and that will include things like working on overtime, where we currently spend £3.5 million. The running costs of the department, looking at our maintenance, we spend £5 million a year on maintenance within the department. There are areas of discretionary in our programmes, things that aren't compulsory. So we'll have to look at all of those things in the round. We haven't discussed those issues or those options with the Minister as yet, as we're waiting the outcome of June monitoring. But certainly we'll need to come back to this committee if we're unsuccessful in June monitoring and advise you of what our next steps and the consequences might be. So that's where we're at. You're quite right in terms of the decisions and the difficult decisions that we'll have to make as part of this process should we be unsuccessful in June monitoring.
Yeah. They all sound like stopgap measures that will undermine the strategic direction of the department.
Well, they're reactive.
Yeah.
They are reactive. There are things that we would prefer not to have to do, but ultimately we have to balance the books. We have to balance the budget, and once we know the outcome of the various negotiations that are ongoing, then we'll take stock at that point in time.
Okay.
Yes, okay.
Joe,
Yeah, Chairman. In terms of the budgetary position over the last 4 years, there has been a reducing budget, and you were expected to live within service delivery plans. Why has the total and net administration costs risen from 54.25 million in 13-14 to 57.98 million in 14-15, and a further increase in 2015-16 to 60.16 million?
You want to?
I suppose to answer that, I think it would be best to provide a breakdown of the 60.6 million in this year.
Keep it simple now, because I'm a simple mind. 3.5 million a year increase is what I see.
There's three main elements to the admin budget, and I'm afraid this is where it gets a bit technical. There's the non-ring-fenced resource Dell admin budget, which is our main admin budget, and it's 39.8 million. There's the ring-fenced resource admin Dell depreciation budget, and it's non-cash, and it's 4 million. And then there's the notional budget, which is not a Dell budget, and it's just put in, it's notionally included to show the full cost of the department, and it's 16.8 million. So those three figures total the 60.6 million. I assume you're taking those figures from page 29 of the main estimates.
Yeah, they're in front of me here. I'm reading them out.
If you looked, I suppose the difference or the reason for the increase is in two main areas, and I suppose the first one I'm going to discuss is on the notionals. And if you look to page 34 of the main estimates, you can see a breakdown of the notional charges, and these are effectively the charges we get from DFP for accommodation on the likes of Dundonald House, and also in the shared services such as HR Connect and Account NI. And you can see there the main reason for the increase there on the accommodation from 7.3 million to 9 and 5.9 million to 7 million. And there the Dell budget's held in DFP, but we're notionally charged for that, so it's not part of our Dell budget.
But are you telling me that this is sort of not a real increase? It's an accounting procedure, is that what you're saying?
Well, I think it's for the main estimates. They show I suppose the total costs that affect the department, and that's a mixture of the Dell budget, the AMI budget, and the notional budget, which is a proportion of those costs that are notionally charged from other departments like DFP. So they're put in for completeness, and that's the DFP provides notional charges to all departments, and that's our share of that.
Thanks, Chairman. It's just as to the layman that looks at the figures, he sees an increase of 3.5 million for each year of the last 2 years. Thanks.
Okay. Sydney?
Well, thank you, Chair. Thank you, gentlemen. Just to follow on what Thomas talked about on the ICT, you talk about the £2 million that's capital bid is required for gap reform. And that, was there much lacking there that we're now in the £2 million sphere of looking for £2 million, and bearing in mind what Edwin has said, how crucial is it that that £2 million would be required? Are we in a place where you could limp on if you didn't get it?
No, we couldn't limp on, that's for sure. I mean, we're introducing new schemes, so what we had before wouldn't, these are totally new schemes that need to be, the IT needs to be redesigned and redeveloped. And certainly there are new geospatial type requirements that the EU have required us to implement as part of these new schemes. I've mentioned a few of them, the environmental farming scheme, areas of natural constraints. So these are all new schemes linked to area-based schemes as well. So we need to implement new IT systems. So I can give you the assurance that it is required. We do need it. You know, it's not bells and whistles or it's not gold plating.
What if, Graham, if you don't get this money, what scenario? Where are we? If you don't get this money, can you find this money within your budget anywhere to upgrade the ICT?
Well, certainly it's something that, well, we prefer to get the money in this monitoring round. That's why we've obviously put it forward.
But if you don't get it,
if we don't get it, we will need to look at our priorities again. We will need to reprioritise and stop things that we had planned.
Put the money to ICT then? Is that what you're saying?
Sorry?
Reprioritise here and ensure money goes to ICT?
Yes, we would have to do that.
Essential measures forward?
Yes.
Is that what we're saying?
Yes.
That you reallocate?
We would have to reprioritise our existing 15-16 capital budget if we weren't successful in the monitoring round.
Yeah. Okay, I know that all this coming forward, it certainly is something maybe you cannot maybe sit back on, and if the money wasn't coming forward, it's going to be something you have to do.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
If a budget is not agreed with the Assembly in the coming months and days, what does this mean for payments to farmers, for instance, single farm payment or basic farm payment and other schemes? Is it any impact? Will it have any impact?
Well, the point that was being made around accruing resources, I think that was the issue, and that's an issue for all departments. It's not unique to DARD. So where departments don't have access to the accruing resources, then it has a significant impact on your ability to incur that expenditure. Well, you can't incur that expenditure. For single farm payment, we have significant receipt that comes in to allow us to make that payment. So at this stage, we're waiting to see what the outcome of the budget process is. But as the Minister has clearly articulated, it's an EU scheme and it's backed by EU funding, so farmers' payments are secure.
Some different schools have thought on that. Right in saying that?
Yeah.
I noticed you said that the Minister thinks. Yeah. So it's not absolutely clear. Is it absolutely clear that payments won't be affected, or not at this stage? Do you feel are you clearly confident that payments won't be affected if a budget's not agreed?
At this stage, there's an issue with getting the budget agreed and on the accruing resources. There's more work to be done in terms of, is there a legislative way of putting in the accruing resources and resolving that issue through legislation. If it's not, we would need to look at contingency arrangements to secure those payments. So it's a very iterative process, as you know, and we're going through the process. Hopefully the budget will be approved through the Assembly. That's our assumption at this point in time.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you again. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay. We're going to agenda item 6, with an oral briefing from DARD on the Rural Development Programme Regulations Northern Ireland 2015. To refer members to the memo from the clerk at pages 141 to 142, papers from the department at pages 143 to 173. And I welcome again, we have Colette McMaster, Pauline Keegan and Paddy Savage. You're all welcome. Can I ask you to, again, give us your presentation, then we'll ask some questions. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr Chairman and committee members, for the opportunity to present to you on the Rural Development Programme Regulations Northern Ireland 2015. Paddy Savage, who is with me, has led on the drafting of these regulations, and Pauline Keegan, Director of Rural Development, has responsibility for, or will have responsibility for, implementation of non-area based RDP schemes. The purpose of these regulations is to provide the Department with the legal powers needed to administer the 2014 to 2020 Rural Development Programme following the approval of the programme by the European Commission. Start with a brief update on the approval of the 2014-2020 draft RDP. The committee is aware from the update briefing provided by officials on the 21st of April 2015 that formal negotiation with the Commission is underway to address the comments raised about our draft RDP in the European Commission's observation letter of the 31st of March 2015 and to gain approval of our programme as soon as possible. These negotiations are continuing, and to date they've included 8 video conference meetings with Commission officials and one face-to-face meeting in Brussels as well. Once the Commission's comments have been addressed to their satisfaction, the full draft programme will be resubmitted formally for approval. It will then go into a period of inter-service consultation within the Commission. We anticipate receiving formal Commission approval for the programme by the end of September and earlier if possible. In parallel, officials are continuing to work on the necessary business cases and the design of schemes so that we can start to open schemes once the necessary EU and business case approvals are in place. Turning now to the draft regulations that are before the committee. These regulations will provide the legal basis for administration of the RDP following its approval by the European Commission. The regulations do not impact upon the content of the RDP that has been submitted to the Commission. They also do not impact upon the budget for the RDP. In developing the regulations for the 2014 to 2020 RDP, officials have sought as far as possible to retain consistency with both the regulations that relate to the 27-2013 Northern Ireland RDP and also the Common Agricultural Policy Control and Enforcement Regulations Northern Ireland 2015, which have already been considered by the ARD Committee and which provide the technical framework for control of the direct payment and support schemes. In keeping with the principles of better regulation, we've sought to minimise the amount of legislation needed to cover the new RDP. Therefore, whilst there have been numerous separate pieces of subordinate legislation in place to cover the schemes in the existing 27 to 2013 RDP, the draft RDP Regulations 2015 will revoke 9 of these separate pieces of subordinate legislation and replace them with a single statutory rule. The new regulations will also include appropriate provisions to allow ongoing administration and payments relating to the previous RDP schemes. Because the Areas of Natural Constraint scheme is quite different in nature to the other new RDP schemes, the ANC scheme will be covered by a separate piece of legislation, and this legislation will be brought forward to the committee for consideration in due course. So these 2015 regulations provide DARD with powers of administration which are broadly similar to those powers already held by the Department in relation to the previous RDP. These are powers to pay financial assistance under the RDP, approve RDP applications and administer claims, require beneficiaries to keep records and supply the Department with reasonable information, enter and inspect premises to which an RDP application relates for the purpose of enforcing the regulations, make determinations on breaches of rules or conditions and withhold or recover RDP payments, charge interest where RDP monies are subject to recovery but not repaid to the Department within 60 days, and recover rural development payments owed to the Department from other cap payments to be made to that beneficiary. There are also provisions on offences and penalties. The draft regulations contain 3 offences. It will be an offence for a person to obstruct an official administering the RDP, to fail without reasonable cause to give an official administering the RDP any assistance or information that official reasonably requires, and to give any official administering the RDP false or misleading information. The penalty for these offences is a fine. The offences and penalties are identical to the offences and penalties in the Pillar 1 regulations that were considered by the committee earlier this year, and also the corresponding English regulations. They're also broadly very similar to the offences and penalties which were in place in respect of the previous RDP. We've consulted with Department of Justice officials about these offences and penalties, and they've indicated their content. I now wish to draw the committee's attention to the aspects of the 2015 regulations which are new. The European regulations state that the Department must set a deadline by which a new holder of land must notify the Department of a transfer of land if they wish to be paid RDP monies under an area-based scheme. Regulation 12 will set a deadline of 90 days by which the new holder of land must notify the Department of a transfer of land. The committee may wish to be aware that England and Scotland have both set deadlines of 90 days, while Wales has opted for a 30-day deadline. We felt that opting for the longer period of 90 days provided more flexibility for farmers here. Regulation 13 requires the Department to publish a definition of agricultural land for the purposes of agri-environment climate schemes. This is an EU requirement, and our legal advice is, as stated, it should be referenced in the legislation. Regulation 21 provides the Department with the power to require a beneficiary to provide an undertaking. This is a potential preliminary step which falls short of a determination and will be used by the Department to aid cooperative working with projects. Because offences and penalties appear in the regulations, these regulations are cross-cutting matter and approval from the Executive is required. Following the Committee's consideration of the regulations, it's proposed to seek Executive consideration of the regulations before the summer recess. Our legal advice states that these regulations cannot be made and laid before the Assembly until after the Department receives approval of the RDP from the European Commission. We're seeking approval of the regulations from the ARD Committee at this stage. We'll then do so from the Executive so that the regulations are ready when the EU Commission approval is received. Should the EU Commission approval be obtained during the summer, it means we would be able to proceed to lay the regulations before the Assembly so that the necessary legal framework is in place for the new RDP. That's all I want to say at this point, so we're happy to answer any questions or provide further clarification. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your presentation. In relation to penalties and the regulation, I just had one particular constituent who had an issue. His issue was the Department deemed it to be intentional, which of course he would deny it was intentional. How does the Department come to that conclusion?
Okay. Perhaps if I could ask Paddy, if you could, would you be able to comment on that?
Well, there is a legal framework in relation to Pillar 1 payments, and a lot of that would come directly from European regulations. In relation to these particular offences, yes, certainly in relation to the first offence, any prosecution would have to be founded on an intentional obstruction, and in relation to prosecutions under those offences, they would be taken by the Public Prosecution Service, though clearly the Department's inspection function would have a role in getting in touch with the PPS about that. But certainly in terms of financial penalties, these regulations do not cover those.
Yeah, they don't cover those. Okay. No, it's just I was aware that some farmers are concerned in relation to breaches that were deemed to be intentional, where certainly farmers certainly were not intentional, but still know they were classified as intentional by the Department. And certainly it does create concern as how the Department ascertains how they came to that conclusion that a simple mistake is an intentional, you understand, and that is an issue. Edwin?
Yeah, in terms of your powers of entry, does that involve
And
your power to come onto someone's premises and on what basis
okay, well, maybe I'll start off.
is this
on-
casual or is this something which has to be approved by a senior officer, you know, after there's been none?
So there's maybe the actual process that you're asking about, and I'll see whether I can bring colleagues in on that when we come to it. Certainly, the power to enter premises, and you're thinking about a farm. There is provision to do that, and clearly the department may need to inspect and may need to have that power to be able to inspect in a premises where there is a farm business being undertaken in the office or whatever.
Okay, so let's just explain how that process happens. Inspections to be carried out as the farmer notified in the first instance.
Yeah, so it's the process
Yes.
rather than the regulations really that you're
A farmer is
about.
notified of an inspection.
I'll maybe wonder if Pauline, would you be in a position to talk about the process?
Are you talking about under the Rural Development Programme, or are you talking about under single farm payment, or?
That's what we're talking about here.
Right. Well, as regards the Rural Development Programme, if there was, if the department wanted to monitor, perhaps to look to see if a letter of offer was actually carried out, if the letter of offer was actually looked at properly. Certainly, you know, people have the power to go in and look to see if a piece of machinery that was bought under the letter of offer was the actual piece of machinery. So in other words, somebody could go in and could look at the number that's on it, or you know, whatever that actually identified it. So that is within the Rural Development Programme, the sort of things that the monitoring officers would actually do.
Yeah. But you would notify the individual before you become to do that, as persons?
Well, the individual or the business or whoever it might be will be aware that there would be a monitoring officer coming out. I mean, I wouldn't call the sort of situation that I'm explaining to you, which is why I asked you the question whether it was to do with single farm payment and inspections or RDP. This would be a monitoring visit that would be done to check the terms of the letter of offer.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm just being clear about the distinction between those two. So that's essentially what that visit would be, and people would be aware, yes.
I don't think it should be an issue. If the department needs to carry out an inspection, I would expect that they notify farmers that they want to carry out an inspection, and the farmer facilitates them in that. I would expect that this is whenever farmers are not facilitating, that the powers are actually used. I think we need to be very cautious, because powers of entry are something in terms of the criminal law and all of that, which are very much protected. And you know, you have to go to a magistrate to get a power of entry in those circumstances. So it shouldn't be the case that when it comes to the farming community, that people can just walk on their property willy-nilly. That there needs to be good cause for that to happen in the first instance. And I'd be very keen to ensure that we protect that right that exists for someone to say, yes, you can come onto my property, you can't come onto my property. But if someone has signed up to a rural development programme and the inspector needs to clarify all of those matters to ensure that good practice has been carried out, then the farmer should cooperate and should be able to move that up the food chain as such and get the authority to then. But it shouldn't be something which a low-ranking officer can just go.
Yeah.
Premises anyway.
They should be aware, Mr. Pitts, as well. I mean, the letter of offer and the scheme literature would set out that those sorts of visits would happen. So people would be aware when they're getting the letter of offer that there would be some sort of checking that would be carried on. So it shouldn't be something that would be a surprise to them. Plus, I think the officers, that would be, if we're maybe talking about leader groups, for example, just to use them as an example, the officers in the local action group should be able to talk to the applicant, the beneficiary, and explain all of that. And it is something that we try and do, is to build up that sort of relationship where we can. I mean, I take your point of just about power of entry. I mean, obviously, I think if we're going to inspect documentation as well, You know, if there's documentation to be inspected, it is probably kept somewhere in an office, perhaps that may or may not be in somebody's dwelling house, or maybe somewhere outside. So, you know, I accept the point you're making, but it will be very clear to beneficiaries under the Rural Development Programme what will happen, and they will be aware. But, you know, your point's a valid one.
Well, I'll just give you an example. A farmer's just finished his milking in the morning, and he hears cows take to the market or animals take to the abattoir. He's leaving the farm for whatever reason, and the inspector lands at the farm and says, I have to do this inspection now. And the individual has actually other things which he cannot change or move to carry on. And he doesn't want people going about his farm without him actually being there for a whole variety of reasons, health and safety, animal welfare and everything else, because tradespeople can spare animals. It should be the case that that individual would be say, well, that's fair enough, you're busy today, when can we arrange over the course of this week to come back and carry out this inspection, as opposed to individuals saying, no, we have to get onto your farm now and do the following. Was that the case? You know, I think that we need to be confident here that we're not giving people excessive powers without diminishing the rights of the department to carry out the inspections, what they need to carry out to ensure that they comply with the European rules.
Well, as I say, I'm making the distinction again between inspections under single firm payment, because I'm not qualified to speak about that, and under, you know, the visits that would be made under the Rural Development Programme. And as I have said, that is the way it has worked in the Rural Development Programme in the past, and I would expect it to continue.
But if you've carried out improvements, for example, to a stocking house, and the livestock are in that house, and you're not going to be available to be there with the inspectors, you will not be particularly happy that somebody's going in there with a stranger's going in there with the livestock, for the welfare of the individual themselves, and indeed the livestock, because very often they can be startled by someone that they're not used to. So we have to be practical about these things too, and ensure that, you know, someone doesn't excessively use powers that are given to them, or the powers can be used excessively, and that they're there for everybody's benefit.
I think absolutely we take the point on that. The powers as well in themselves in terms of inspection are broadly similar to what is in place for the current programme. So we're not seeking more. We're not seeking more.
I'm not sure what they are. I haven't got from you what the powers are yet, and are they at a fairly low level in terms of the grade of the officer? Are they at a more significant level? And is it only whenever someone was being obstructive that they're actually used? So that's, you know.
Or is it an agreement with the farmer or with the person that has attained the funding? Is there a phone call to them and says we're doing an inspection? And
well, as I say, if somebody is coming out to monitor, you know, something on the farm, or to look at papers, documentation, or the piece of machinery, yes, there would be hopefully a phone call or whatever made. Yeah, I mean, that is how it has worked in the past.
That's all very vague in this respect.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I'd like to see something a bit more concrete, just as to around these issues, as to what the standard procedures are. There's bound to be a standard operating procedure on this, and indeed when people are being obstructive, as to how these things can be managed to ensure that, you know, the department is able to maintain its obligations to the European Union.
Okay, we can do that for you.
okay, that was good. Yeah.
Yep, we will.
Tom.
Chair, thank you for the presentation. How much of these regulations that are actually contained within European legislation, or none of them? You know, how much of you to follow European regulations in regard to these?
Well, these are. You're talking about the Rural Development Programme, and to what extent these are additional to the Rural Development Programme? Well, these are I suppose the purpose of these is to allow us to administer the Rural Development Programme, and it is really in order. And the key things there are to be able to make payments under the programme. We need this domestic legislation, and so where there are sort of provisions in the at European level, we need this domestic legislation to implement. That's the advice that we have from solicitors here. So it's to make payments, it's to issue applications, it's to consider applications, it's to inspect and so on. So it's a framework of domestic legislation to allow us to implement, to allow us to administer the programme that will be approved by the European Commission when that happens.
There was similar legislation for the last rural development programme, wasn't
There was similar legislation, difference being in the last programme we had numerous numbers of statutory rules in place across the programme. So there were more than 10, I know there were numerous beyond that, but what we sought to do this time is to help achieve more consistency across the various schemes and so on, was to develop a single statutory rule if we could. There will be one other, and it'll be for the ANC scheme. But other than that, this is a single.
One other what, sorry?
Another piece of legislation, one other piece of subordinate legislation
Dealing with?
for the areas of natural constraint scheme. But it's only those two that we're envisaging this time round, as opposed to a number the last time.
Just like a definition of agricultural land, is there a European definition? Do you know the way there's an agricultural definition of a farmer in European regulations?
There isn't a European definition. European regulations say that we must define what agricultural means in the context of our agri-environment climate schemes. So that's for each programme, really. I suppose that our programme is at Northern Ireland level, so we must define what that is, and other programme holders would need to define what that is for them. It relates only to the agri-environment climate schemes. The Department's currently considering that. There are certain other stipulations in the new regulations. They stipulate that agri-environment climate schemes should be available to both farmers and agricultural land managers. So therefore, in coming to that definition, we want to be as flexible as possible to allow farmers and agricultural land managers to apply for schemes. It is a definition that will be set out in the operating rules for the scheme and in the guidance for the scheme. But the
So in other words, it said here, go back to the definition of agricultural land, the Department shall publish in such manner as it thinks appropriate a definition of agricultural land. That's giving you pretty wide-ranging powers.
Well, that's what the regulations do say. So, and that's what other programmes will be doing.
But can you not put that definition into the regulation here as Europe does in the regulation for the definition of a farmer?
Well, if you put it into the legislation, it does mean that there's less flexibility in relation to the scheme. Certainly what the intention is, and it doesn't appear in other pieces of legislation. I mean, in Scottish, Welsh, English legislation don't define that either. So that is, we must say that we will publish it, and that actually places the obligation on DAR to do so. But the intention
Yeah, but what gives me concern, Colette, is that DAR may publish it in a manner that's not appropriate to many farmers.
Well, I think when DARD in developing that will be taking account of the needs of farmers and land managers here, because that's the intention. It's to make the scheme as flexible as possible so that it actually works here. It won't be possible to firm up on the design of schemes until the EU approval is there for the draft programme, because we have, as you're aware, we're negotiating currently with the Commission on the comments on the draft programme. So we're hoping to get to a place soon where we have the draft programme approved, but we can't firm up on the detail of schemes until so the actual definitions and so on that relate to the specific design of those schemes will follow.
Okay, and sorry, just to clarify once again, because I thought a number of the issues within this were actually contained within the programme as it was set out by Europe. So you saying that none of this is actually within European regulations as they would set it out for a scheme? For example, record keeping?
Well, some of it will be set out at European level, but our legal advice is that we must have our domestic legislation to enable us to administer. So that's what we have to, in terms of what we're doing in Northern Ireland, we will have to have that in place in order to be able to make payments under legislation, to be able to take applications, to require those to be able to enforce and inspect the records. Paddy, is there anything that you want to add in terms of?
No, simply
legal?
to emphasise that this was the legal, we have taken legal advice, and certainly the legal advice we received was we do need these types of powers in domestic subordinate legislation.
Chair, just what makes me suspicious is transfer of holdings. They're able to clearly define that must be done within 90 days from the first date of the transfer of the holding, which is fine if that's what it is. But in other aspects like record keeping, definition of land or farmland, they cannot give you a definition. All they will say is, and again pointing to the record keeping, same as providing paragraphs 2 and 3 in the invoice or other documents relating to the approved operation for such period as the department or its agent may reasonably determine. So in one part of the legislation or the regulation, they can clearly define a time scale of 90 days for transfer of holdings, but they can't define how long they must keep your invoices and account management for. I'm just saying that it seems to be in one area it's clearly defined in the transfer of holdings. In other areas it's open to subject to whatever the department thinks they can reasonably get away with.
Yeah, I understand, yeah.
I just come back on the record keeping. I mean, record keeping will depend what the scheme is and what the nature of the scheme is, but it'll be appropriate, whatever that scheme is. We wouldn't want to be in a position where we're defining that at the beginning before firming up in scheme design. So it's better to have that level of information in the. I would come back to what Paul.
Well, I'm sure the definition of agricultural land.
I'm
sure the definition of agricultural land would be the same for all schemes.
It only applies to the agri-environment climate.
Okay, whatever it applies to. The point is, you're not putting the definition in, you're leaving it open.
If you put it in here, it's a bit like the programme itself, which is being approved at EU level. The programme itself will give us the framework for the RDP. It doesn't define the absolute detail of how we're going to implement the programme, because that will happen in the scheme rules. And if we had to define that at EU level, it would make it a lot more inflexible in terms of needing to change that, if we had to come and change that and going through a formal process. I suppose there's some of the things and some of that level of detail is appropriate to have in the operating rules so that it is possible to change it if it needs to be. If it's not working for people, if it needs a bit more flexibility. So these
read
regulations.
The small print, Chair. Read the small print.
Before you sign.
Page 687 of the operating rules, you'll find it whenever you ask the question.
Well, I would think when people are. I mean, I don't. You can talk about the operating rules for the lags, Pauline, possibly. But
I can. I mean, I know that there was a lot of criticism of the size of the operating rules. Is probably what you're referring to. Absolutely. About page 685. I mean, to be honest, I'll not get into it again because I know we've gone over this loads of times. There was a lot in that where templates of forms, etc., etc. And in the operating rules that we have at the moment, we were able to actually change them, and we were actually able to respond to changes that happened, over the course of the scheme, and I actually think that was a good thing. But one of the things that we're doing now with the local action groups is working with them, and we're trying to look at the lessons learned, and we're trying to say, well, what do you think was wrong with those operating rules? Were they badly presented? Were they too long, too complex, whatever it is? And let's try and draw them up together. But and back to Colette's point, I think that's something that we would want to have for these particular schemes. It's a huge programme. It's very diverse. There's schemes for farmers, there's schemes for the rural community, there's schemes for community groups. There's a lot of schemes, and I think to tie it down in that way would not be good for the actual beneficiary. And I think we would be criticised about that later on if we actually attempted to do it now. So that's really the reasoning behind that.
Okay.
Thanks, Chair.
Right. Joe.
Chairman, my question has been answered now, thanks.
Okay, right. Sydney.
Thank you, Chair. Apologies, I had to leave the meeting for a short while now, so my questions may have been touched on. Probably, Pauline, what's so different with the powers this time than previous, say, programmes that has been administered by DARD going forward in the regulations that's going in place?
Not really a lot, Sydney. I think that the difference is, as Colette had said at the beginning, is instead of having a whole lot of different statutory rules, for example, we had one for the farm modernisation programme just on its own this time, and we had another 9, I think we 10 altogether. And this time we're bringing it together actually into one piece of legislation. So that's better. You know, we hope that people will think that's better from the point of view of not having a whole lot of different SRs that everybody has to look at. So it's good from that point of view. And essentially, you know, I think Colette set out maybe some of the new powers that there are within this legislation, but there's not that many, and essentially it really is the same as we've had before, but because obviously we're going into a new programme, we do have to set it out in that way.
I accept that we have to set it out, but what went before, did we have many problems in relation to how it was administered with the legislation going forward? Were lessons learned that will be now put in place in this legislation going as we move on? Because I think we have to try and make things better rather than make things worse for those who are getting the grant aid. So can you see this as moving into a better place than we were before in previous programmes?
I think it's a good question, and I think it does come back to, you know, maybe not just actually the legislation, which is just enabling, but to the actual operating rules, which is probably what you're getting at there. You know, the actual operating rules for the schemes, and I said to Mr. Elliott, yes, what we're hoping to do for the local action groups, just as an example, is to try and reduce those, make them clearer, and do the lessons learnt. And, you know, we will have different schemes, obviously, this time around, and we'll be looking at operating rules and scheme rules for them that perhaps we haven't done before. You know, a new big capital scheme, for example, down the line, which we haven't done for some considerable time. So we will have to look at that and what the rules will be. But I think we have taken on board, you know, what people have said about trying to make this simple, easy. We certainly did try and do that, I have to say, with the farm modernisation programme for the farmers. Now, okay, it was a small scheme, I accept that. It wasn't a huge grant or anything like that, but we did try and keep it extremely simple, you know, that people could fill in a form and essentially get their money. Now, maybe one of the changes that there will be, you know, going forward, you know, is that perhaps when banks are looking to give loans to farmers and to rural dwellers, they may well say, well, look, you know, can we really trust the project? And perhaps what we'd like to see is perhaps some sort of business plan from you. So, you know, we will probably be looking to do that in the Rural Business Investment Scheme, for example, that we'll be saying to beneficiaries, we will want to see a business plan from you, but we will work with you and help with you and try and make sure that the business plan process is as simple as possible. That is maybe, you know, a bit of a change. It's the balance between keeping it really simple, trying to make it simple and easy for beneficiaries, and also, you know, making sure that it is value for money, and that if people do have to go and get loans or whatever from the bank, they can say, yeah, you know, here is the business plan that I have drawn up to ensure that this project is sustainable. So it's that little bit of balance we're trying to achieve, if we can.
And achieving that balance, Pauline, are you confident that we are going into the future in a better place here compared to past?
I think we have learnt a lot of lessons over the last 7 years with the Rural Development Programme. I do. And I think you would criticise us as a committee. And I'm sure as we come back up to you in the years to come, we'll see if that's borne out. And no doubt there'll be plenty of challenging questions. But genuinely, we are trying to do that. And it's one of the reasons why we're talking to the people who have been involved in it. And basically saying to them, how can we make this easier for you? Because from the LAG's point of view, they are the ones on the front line who actually deal with the beneficiaries, and we're at a step back. So.
Okay, thank you, Pauline. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Oliver McMullen.
Can I apologise for not being here? When you mentioned there a business plan, Pauline, can I suggest maybe some kind of a template of a business plan is sent out? Because the word business plan scares people.
Scares people.
And
scares me too sometimes.
It does, yeah. And if a template of one is sent out or sent out to the LAGs, to use as a template for anybody who's asking, what's a business plan? How's it done? That may help people as well.
Yeah.
But I hope in this one here, there was a lot of talk the last time, what was at fault? The department was at fault, minister was at fault, everybody was at fault. And we worked through it, but it was strange whenever they came to present to the committee here, there was no fault. Everything was going all right, but whenever people were at you. So I think a lot of the problems, I think we maybe we're running the risk of generating problems. I think things were running a lot smoother this time than the last time. I think the lessons, most of the lessons we learned, I think are outside. Not to say there's not some lessons to learn inside, but I think that message has got to go out as well, that there's lessons to be learnt out there. But the template, I do believe of that, because as a farmer gets that there, he will, not say panic, but he'll start to go, whoa, I want to send out, show how easy that's to do. I think that would help a great deal, and it would speed up the process too, because you say you have to have a template for that there, business plan. It could take it, could slow up the programme, and we could be looking at an underspend. If we can get that programme moving quickly, get the money spent quicker.
I think it is a good point. And one of the things that we're looking at for the rural businesses that the local action groups will be looking after is indeed to have a template. We, at Balmoral, we actually set up funding workshops for people to come in and for us to talk to them and try and give them some help and advice. I think on the Farm Business Improvement Scheme, one of the things that we want to do with farmers in advance of them perhaps deciding whether or not they want to go down the route of capital funding and put their own money into that, is to try and work with them and help with them on business planning, and that would be one of the things that we would want to do well in advance of any capital scheme. So I think you're right. The more that we can work with people at a very early stage about business planning, because it is something that perhaps worries people and scares people a little bit. And we have taken that lesson, I think, from this last programme, and we're trying to build it in the schemes that will go out, I say not just for the local action groups, but for on-farm business investment.
Can I just say very quickly to finish up with, you see the programmes under tourism?
Yes.
There is talk that Invest NI will be involved in tourism this time, administrating small grants, etc. Will they be involved anyway in determining funding for tourist projects, for diversification or for village programmes?
Well, the tourism measure that we have within the programme is going to be administered by the department directly. And we're looking at what we would call more strategic tourism type activities. That the money, we can actually see the money being a bit sustainable rather than very sort of small types of projects that we've had in the past. We intend to work with local councils. Now, certainly when we're looking at tourism, we would not want the sort of activities that we do to be outside of a tourism strategy or something that has been drawn up and agreed by the executive, and that would be wrong. So within those confines of making sure that there is a context, if I can put it, for tourism, essentially we will be working with the councils within Dard, because this is rural tourism. But, sometimes it can be a good thing, to work with other departments and to have some sort of interdepartmental working going ahead. But as it stands at the moment, we are looking to work with the councils and their partners in looking at strategic tourism.
I'm just thinking.
Not sure if that answers you.
Well, that's sort of.
Legally,
but just that when that Deputy Minister talked about the new way forward on the new tourism North NI, we did say that we may have Invest NI in there looking at administrating small grants, for applications. I don't know whether it was actually agreed to have them or not, but I'm not saying there's a bad thing. But Invest NI are a body who survives on what they earn. So if they're involved in it, will they be earning from it?
Well, I don't know whether, and I didn't hear that, so I'm not sure whether Investment were talking about their own scheme, particularly in that case. So I'm not sure about that.
Okay.
So I can look at that. But certainly, as we are set up to do this tourism measure, it is a direct drive with the councils and their partners, and we will have our own strategic vision. But as I say, we wouldn't want to be doing anything that's outside of a strategy that's agreed by the executive for tourism or by the Tourist Board Ireland, anything like that.
I wish you well this year. I think it'll go better this time than last time.
Hopes, yeah, I think so too. Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Certainly, can I say, and I sat on sore for some time, that I hope that lessons have been learned, and I hope there's a more simplified approach, especially to smaller, amounts of grants. I think it is very off-putting for people who have to jump through the same hoops for 4,000 or 5,000 a grant than 50 or 100. So I think
proportionality, Chair.
Yes, absolutely, and I think I hope lessons have been learned in that, because I have people come to me and say, I'd never go through that again to get that amount of money. So I hope lessons have been learned, and I hope we can simplify. And I know you were curtailed and so on within rules and all the rest, but hopefully that can be done. I just see here in relation to, and I maybe asked this question some time ago, and I'm not sure of the answer yet, but I see that if any monies that have to be repaid to the department, interest will be charged after 60 days. If you owe clients money, do you pay interest after 60 days? I know one particular issue that I was dealing with, and there was 50,000 involved, and it had to run on for 6 or 8 months. Now the department is going to pay. Do they pay interest on?
Not sure I can answer that. After 60 days?
That's the question, isn't it?
Pardon?
You're asking, does the department pay interest?
Yes, that's what I'm asking the question.
After
I
the
mean,
60 days? Yeah.
they asked people that has to pay back monies and it's owed over 60 days to pay interest.
Yeah, it's our debt recovery section who actually look after that and set that. So, sorry, Paddy, did you want to jump in?
Well, that is within the European regulations that after a certain period of time, which cannot be more than 60 days, we are obliged to charge interest. And so that comes directly from the European regulations.
But it was a hold up. If someone's going to claim and you have held them up for 6 months and then decide to pay them in the end, do you pay them interest?
The best of my knowledge, not in the European regulations, but the point's noted, Chair.
But you can understand where I come from?
Yes, we do.
Yes, very much so,
yes.
Chair.
Understand the point.
If it's sausage goose or sauce for the gander, it should be both ways. If the department owes for a long period of time, I believe they should be paying interest too.
We can assume that'll be in the new regulation.
Well, so we understand the point you're making.
Very good.
You will be coming back. I think there's a couple of things. The powers of entry, something Mr. Poots said. You said you were coming back.
We were at you on that, Chair.
Could you please?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Certainly.
Operational procedures.
It's maybe easier for you if we set it out.
And I do see here that the DART is to publish the definition of agricultural land, which should be fairly what I would have thought. It's to be published anyway. See here, DART to publish the definition of agricultural land with purpose for environmental.
No, that is absolutely to be done.
Just on the operational procedures on going on to land or property, would that not be similar to the last? I think, Tony, you did mention about letters of offering when a person signs up to that. Would that not be included in that?
It'll be.
It's more likely to be similar, would you agree?
Shouldn't change actually in any significant way. It should be exactly the same. The way the letter of offer is set out will have the conditions to the letter of offer.
Were there any problems in the past regarding that?
I
Were
think
there any issues, big issues with that?
I don't think there has been within the rural development programme. I think sometimes there are issues, farmers would say, of so many inspectors and all sorts of different inspectors, coming onto their land, maybe at the same time, and some of the points that Mr. Poots was making about if people are not available or it's not a good day or, things like that. And I think what he was asking us was to really set out, well, really, what are your rules of engagement, I suppose, if we could call them that? What's your protocols, really?
And in fairness, I think Okay, a lot of that's common sense.
Yeah.
A lot of
should-
it would be, and some of it should also be, you know, your point set out on the letter of offer, that would be explained and would be in the scheme literature. But I think it's a fair point, and I suppose, you know, I was not answering him terribly well because we were sort of thinking, well, we're still sort of working through that a wee bit. But it's a good opportunity, really, to sort of, you know, think about it now and set it out.
Have a good look at it
we'll
and
do
ensure that takes the points on board that
Yes.
has been raised here today.
Yeah, no, we'll do that for you. We'll certainly.
Thank you very much.
Can I just say, Chair,
Right, go ahead.
can we look at stage payments this time? Last time there was stage payments didn't come in until halfway through the programme.
To later on.
To later
Yes.
on. And could that be in at the start of the programme that stage payments can be made? Because it was really left down. Some of the places were actually interpreted it their own way, but if it's defined in there, that everybody then can.
I think that's one of the points that will have been made to us by our local action group colleagues about that, so we will be looking at that, yeah.
And there certainly is the power within the legislation to make payments in either a single lump sum or an instalment, so certainly that power is contained within the regulations.
That means we can take it then the next level down to the...
Some of the managers the last time weren't really their heads weren't around that.
No, I know.
Okay.
Can I just, on the timing of it, you know, just to come back, what we were hoping to do is, if the committee's content, to put the regulations to the executive before the summer recess. The reason for that being, it's just to be ready in the event that we have EU approval over the summer.
Okay.
That we could then go ahead.
Okay. Well, can I ask members, are they content that the regulations move to the next legislative stage?
Great.
Great. Okay. In relation to the previous presentation in relation to the Monday round, can I ask members, are they content to support Dar's Monday round proposal? Are they to do that? Okay. Okay, members. Great. Okay. And item 7, written briefing from DARD on the outcome of consultation simplification of fishing vessel licensing. Can I refer members to the briefing papers from the Department of pages 175 to 183? Can I advise members that the Department issued a consultation in June 2014 on the simplification of fishing vessel licensing, to which they received 13 responses. Similar consultations were held in England, Scotland and Wales. The consultation was not finalised until discussion had taken place with the other fisheries administrations this year. The major change that is proposed is to abolish A, B and C vessel licence categories with effect from the 1st of January 2016. Can I seek comments from members? Everyone looked at that or need to look at it? Or everyone happy?
Seems okay, Chairman.
Okay.
No representation from either.
No. Okay. Move on to agenda item 8, written briefing from DARD SR 2015-248, the less favoured area compensatory alliance amendment regulations Northern Ireland 2015. Can I refer members to the memo from the clerk at pages 185 to 186 and papers from the department at pages 187 to 192. Can I advise members that the regulations last came before the committee on the 12th of May 2015, and it was agreed that the policy should move to the next legislative stage. The regulations stipulate that the department's powers of recovery in respect of monies paid to those who have breached the scheme rules and provide for interest to be recovered following laying of the original regulations. It was noted that there was a difference in the wording of the regulations that did not agree with the intention of the EU legislation. Therefore, the amendment to the regulations will clarify that position. Can I seek comments from members? Content, I'm going to put the question that the Committee for Agriculture and Rural Development has considered SR 2015-248, less favoured area compensation amendment regulations Northern Ireland 2015, and has no objection to the rule. Okay. Agenda item 9, EU Commission report mandatory food labelling. Can I refer members to the memo from the EU Affairs Manager at pages 194 to 195? The memo advises that the EU Commission has published 2 mandatory food labelling reports and the links are provided within the memo. The first report examines the feasibility of options for mandatory or origin labelling for dairy products and minor meats, and concludes that any compulsory requirement for dairy products would have an uneven impact on producers and raise doubts about consumer willingness to absorb the cost of paying for additional information. The second report considers unprocessed foods, single ingredient products and ingredients, which represents more than 50% of food. The report concludes that consumers are interested in origin labelling for all those food categories, less so for food categories such as meat products and dairy products. Both reports will now go to the European Parliament and Council. Can I see agreement to ask research to track the progress of both reports and report back to the committee on this?
Yes.
Is an issue okay?
Chairman, should be also seek from the department itself any views on this issue, because obviously this is a pretty contentious issue. Farmers have been concerned about for some time.
Yes, I think in relation to lambs, we see the outcome of that in recent weeks. So I think it's very important that we don't create more. There's not more problems created than we already have, you know. So do you want to write to the board? Yeah, okay, is that okay?
I want to get home. Get out of
there. Okay. Then item 10. Committee review DARD response to TRIPSI position paper. Can refer members to the DARD response to the TRIPSI position paper, pages 197 to 200. I advise members that at the meeting last Thursday in Cookstown, the committee received a briefing from officials on the response to TRIPSI position paper. Members raised concern over the lack of progress to date in implementing the recommendations, and it was agreed to write to the Minister regarding this. A draft letter to the Minister has been tabled for the members to consider and to seek comments from members. Okay, has everyone seen that draft letter? Okay.
Chairman, the only issue, Declan raised the issue about this, whether it's in our correspondence today from Committee Down or Committee Network.
We'll deal with that next.
Okay, good on.
That's the next item, yeah.
This one? Item 11, correspondence. Confirm members the correspondence was received at pages 203 to 205.
There's a letter there from Barclay Bell of Ulster Farmers Union, which raises grave concerns about universal credit and how it would apply to the farming community.
That is right. I think the issue in and around this, if I get it right now, and someone can, in around universal credit, am I right in saying that now they are now asked for to show books on a monthly basis? Is that right? Am I right on this? Yeah. Instead of a yearly basis, which means a farmer, for instance, that has a very low income, he may sell cattle in 1 month, and that 1 month might show a high income, but over his year he's very low income. So
the money's well spent before he sold the cattle.
yeah, but if he's asked for this on a monthly basis, it seems very unfair.
Middleman fertiliser man will be waiting on it, I know.
They will, that's for sure.
I think the issues are that it'll be a very cumbersome system for the farmer. Every month he has to supply cash in, cash out details.
Right.
And given the irregularity of the income on a farm, that's virtually impossible. The dairymen's only people that would have a regular check of some kind that they could, and maybe they might need universal credit. But I think that there's some serious concerns there. I'm glad that Barclay Bell and the EFU have
highlighted them,
and I think we would do some representation.
Can we write to the SD committee, maybe, and ask them to forward to the department?
We actually can forward it directly to you.
Can we?
Yes.
All right.
And that's what I've suggested that we do. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, we can do that. Yeah.
Okay, everyone happy with that then?
And then this one.
We already discussed this earlier, but I can draw members' attention to one item of correspondence which has been tabled. The Rural Community Development Support Service has been forced to service notice on its employees as they have no written contract or payment from DARD despite repeated promises of a 1-year extension to the existing contracts. And I see agreement to forward a letter to the department that has been raised by Declan, I think, first person to raise that today, so.
I think it's important to point out too, Chair, that this isn't just about the county down. This is on behalf of, I think it's 9. Is it 9 of these networks right across all the north? Right, Chair.
Forward letter to the Parliament seeking early resolution of this issue, which I think is only but right. I think it's like we're now June. It's very unsatisfactory. Members content to action the remaining correspondence as suggested on the index sheet at page 202. Okay. Agenda item 12, forward work programme. Can I refer members to the forward work programme, pages 207 to 209, and the draft itinerary for the visit to Athby Lochgall on the 25th of June from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. At pages 210 to 211. We have a number of confirmed members that are going. We've confirmed members to Athby visit are Sydney Anderson, Tom McKinnon, Joe Byrne, Juan Dobson, and Oliver McMullen, and myself, and hopefully maybe some others may be able to attend. Are members content with the proposed itinerary? Okay, members. May I also advise members that the National Flying Championships will take place on the 22nd to 24th of September in County Laois, the same venue as last year. Can I seek an indication of members wish to attend the event? I certainly have. I've been there a couple of times, so I don't see any point attending unless someone wants to attend in their own capacity.
What's attending?
From our perspective, it's just a large show. I mean, I don't think we have.
The committee's been 3 times in the last 5 years, and we normally go to, at the invitation of the Minister, to Dard hold an event on the Tuesday evening for all the Northern Ireland exhibitors at the event, and and we've been there and we've done it 3 times in the last 5 years. So members normally we go down a bit earlier. Members have a chance to wander around the show and then attend the reception, and then back to the hotel and home the next day.
So I mean, unless someone wants to go in their own capacity, I've been there. It's a very good event. I mean, I have no problem with the event. I mean, it's a very large event.
I've been at it in the past, Chairman.
Pardon?
I've been at it in the past.
Yes, so have I. So I'm not.
Well, Chair, out in Flying Championship, we're just out there. There's a lot of exhibitors from the north here, and we'd be provided with a list of all of them, and I think it's they like to see us around this different stalls, and the art event as well. It's worthwhile.
Yeah. Well, Chairman, I think if anybody really wants to go, we should maybe try and facilitate them.
We certainly facilitate it. Yeah, members want to go, we can facilitate that. Yeah, but we need to know now, because, as you know, if you don't book now, you don't get a hotel room. It's as simple as that. You'll be staying in Dublin.
What date was it for there, Chair?
It's a 27th. You normally go down the 27th. It might be Tuesday, 22nd. September. But it's so booked out, you need to book now.
So booked out?
You need to book now if you're going to get a hotel.
You ever down?
Tuesday.
Oh, it's a massive event. Good enough, but
That's worthwhile event.
I mean, I can't go this year, so
pardon?
I won't be able to go.
No. Well, I mean,
If I send an email out to members and they come back to me by next week.
That's the thing to do. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Don't mean like entourage,
No, absolutely not. No. Can I remind members that the joint meeting with the ETI Committee to discuss the Agri-Food Strategy Board's Going for Growth will take place next Tuesday, 9th of June, in the Senate Chamber at 12:30 p.m. I remind members that we will need a quorum of 4 odd members, 20 members throughout this meeting. So we must need a quorum from both committees.
Yes, you do.
Okay. So that's point. It'll look bad if we haven't.
Sure, the meeting would be in the Senate now.
No,
Just a separate meeting from our
separate
own.
meeting, yes, a joint meeting with the ETI committee, because Going for Growth falls more or less equally to both.
Good.
So both committees will be coming together, and we'll hear from Tony O'Neill and officials at 12:30 in the Senate, and then we'll come back here probably around about 2 o'clock. And to facilitate that, because you'll not have a proper break, we'll have some sandwiches here for 2 o'clock. I know.
So is that clear now? Our normal committee meeting will take place at 2 p.m. in room 30.
12:30 in the Senate.
That will say it will be right.
Yeah.
Tuesday.
Yeah. the committee asked for it, said there was no point. And last time we had the Growing for Growth people presented to the EDI committee in the morning and the ARD committee in the afternoon.
Two different stories.
And I think they felt it was better to get a joint briefing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Item 13, any other business? Any other business?
It's just there, you know, that we write to the Chief Veterinary Officer, you know, in the light of the information that was today about the ice spike on the TV.
Yep.
From maybe what areas that it's concentrated on.
Yeah.
Well, something. Yeah.
Okay.
We've never seemed to get good news in TV.
No.
No, since we've got these.
I mean, if you go back over 20 years, you know, they've never made any headway, really.
Not really, no. It's not good enough, to be honest.
No, it's-
There's caves in those areas that they were testing.
Sorry.
Well, the test, all, you know, all of Northern Ireland is tested on a regular basis, so I mean, it's not to say you're testing one area
You
more.
know, they were concentrating on 3 areas. We went down to see one of them.
But yeah, the
Be interested to see
TV
if
and the
there's any of those
TVR.
areas there.
TVR, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
That's another thing, on TVR we have heard very little lately, so we haven't.
Do you want to make that an oral briefing?
I think we need, yeah, because
The combination of DVR and the hirings.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bear in mind, he did say that because it seemed to be because of a more rigorous test.
Yeah.
So,
just seeing, and you know, well, we had the committee from down south in the Republic some time ago, but they are culling deers because there's a big problem. Deers, there's a lot of deers infected. Okay. We want to agenda item 14, date and time of next meeting. The concurrent meeting with the EDI committee will take place Tuesday night, June 2015 at 12:30 p.m. in the Senate chamber, followed by a regular meeting at 2 p.m. in room 30, Parliament Building. I declare the meeting adjourned.